I paid for the entire weekend. The rooms, the cabana, the private chef dinner, the vintage wine she once cried over during a Napa tour. We're talking thousands, prepaid. A stupid gesture for a woman who stopped holding my hand in public 5 years ago, but still made me believe anniversaries meant something. I booked the resort months ago, had the concierge handwrite a note, and tuck it inside her pillow, pre-selected the playlist for the in-room speakers. Sinatra, Norah Jones, the same stuff we danced to before the mortgage, before the Botox, before tennis club dinners became more important than dinner with me. And what does she do? She brings them. 3 couples from her new circle. A word she used like an apology and a threat rolled into one. I asked if we could have this weekend for ourselves. She smiled thinly and said, "You'll like them. They're very successful." That was the first crack. We arrive. I will in her bag because God forbid a Louis Vuitton roller bag actually be used by the person who owns it. At check-in, the front desk girl, early 20s, too polite, looks at the reservation, frowns slightly, and whispers something to the concierge. Then comes the voice that made me want to snap a pen in half. We reserved rooms only for the elites. That came from Melanie. Platinum hair, wide hat, the kind of woman who laughs loudly at her own texts. She wasn't even smiling when she said it, just smirking like it was fact. I looked at my wife, who I've stood beside during chemo consultations with her mother, who I've financially supported through 2 business ventures, both failed, and who I've defended at every single family dinner when her sister calls her out for being cruel. She didn't flinch, didn't correct the record. She just laughed, a soft little heh, as if I was some endearing misunderstanding, like a stray dog that accidentally wandered into the bridal suite. So I nodded, just once. Then I turned to the front desk, said, "Thanks for your time," and walked out. No fireworks, no scene, no suitcase-dragging tantrum. Just left. She didn't follow. Of course she didn't. Melanie was already ordering cucumber martinis for everyone, and my wife, Cynthia, was too busy playing hostess, too busy ensuring her little social coup went smoothly. You know what stung the most? It wasn't the insult. I've been called worse, even by her. It was the way she didn't even look back, as if I was already removed from the picture, like a placeholder finally stepping aside for the main cast. And before I continue, because believe me, this only gets better, I just want to say something real quick. If you're listening, if you've made it this far, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. Seriously, it costs you nothing, and it tells me and the team behind this that you're here for these kinds of stories. Most of you won't, but if even a few do, it motivates the hell out of us to keep going. So thanks. Back to the resort. I didn't go far. I walked past the fountain where couples were taking selfies, past the valet pretending not to notice the argument at the Porsche, and I stood by the cliffside for a while. The Pacific was calm, like a lie told with a smile. Now, here's the part no one saw coming. Because while Cynthia was basking in her little weekend of high-end delusion, I wasn't just some husband licking his wounds. See, I didn't walk away because I was embarrassed. I walked away because the timing was finally right. I had waited months for that exact moment. A scene I didn't need to create, she choreographed it for me. And the second she let Melanie say those words, the second she laughed, I knew the final lever had been pulled. Not by her, by me. And if you think I'm being cryptic, good. That means you're paying attention. Just know this, that weekend wasn't hers to claim. It was mine to end. Melanie was the loudest in the pool. She always is. If Cynthia is champagne arrogance, Melanie is straight vodka with a megaphone. Their laughter echoed off the marble columns like some deranged sorority mixer, all salt-rimmed glasses and lip fillers. No one asked where I went. No one wondered why the guy who paid for 6 Ocean View suites had disappeared before the first round of drinks. That's the thing about people like them. They assume the help just glitches sometimes. Cynthia was in full hostess mode. She wore that navy one-piece she said she'd never wear again because it reminded her of me. Strange, then, that she picked it the first day I was gone. Maybe that's how her mind works, like a dog burying a bone in the same spot every year, shocked each time it's missing. By day 2, the group had settled into its natural hierarchy. Melanie led, Claudia nodded, Greg did that awful double laugh to fill dead air, and Cynthia stayed just adjacent to the spotlight. That's her sweet spot. Never first chair, but always second with a chance to leapfrog. It was Claudia, bless her Botoxed soul, who noticed it. They were coming back from the spa, detox wraps, and lies told in eucalyptus. As they passed the main entrance, she slowed her step and tilted her sunglasses. That name, she said, squinting at the brass plaque mounted beside the welcome arch, that name sounds really familiar. Cynthia didn't even look. She waved her hand, dismissive. One of those old money donors. These places slap a name on a rock and call it heritage. But Claudia walked back. Read it aloud. Dedicated to J. A. Morgan for his unmatched generosity and legacy of quiet excellence. She turned. Jonathan. Your husband's name is Jonathan, right? Cynthia rolled her eyes. Please. If Jonathan had that kind of money, he wouldn't still be driving a 2014 Lexus with broken Bluetooth. Everyone laughed. Even the concierge at the desk cracked a grin, though his eyes didn't. He glanced toward the lobby. Fast. Nervous. Melanie chimed in, swirling her drink. Besides, no offense, but your Jonathan didn't exactly scream legacy. He screamed Costco credit card and vanilla ice cream. Exactly, Cynthia said, brushing past the plaque. If my Jonathan had any ties to this place, I'd know. The general manager heard the whole exchange. He had just stepped out of the office hallway, a clipboard in hand, when he froze mid-step. That name on the plaque wasn't just a decoration to him. It was a warning. I'd had it installed 4 months ago. Not the nameplate, the entire wing. The spa they just wrapped themselves in eucalyptus inside? I funded that build-out. Quietly, under the radar, through a trust with a name no one ever Googles because no one thinks to. It's amazing how anonymous you can be when people assume you're poor. The plaque was my only ask. I didn't even want it visible to guests. Just enough presence to remind staff that legacy isn't loud. It's silent. It's strategic. And when insulted, it doesn't bark. It waits. The manager stared at the plaque. Then at Claudia. Then at the door. He didn't say a word. But his mind was already racing. Because J. A. Morgan wasn't on the guest list, but he had been on property. And now he was gone. And the people who just mocked his name? Still here. He looked toward the front desk again. The concierge avoided his gaze. The shift had begun, even if they didn't know it yet. They thought they were on vacation. They didn't realize they were standing inside a chessboard someone else had already rigged. The call came just after 2 p.m., routed through the GM's private line. Not his desk phone, not the resort's digital call system, his line. The one only the board used. The one that never rang unless someone up top had spotted blood in the water. He answered on the second ring, already standing. James Whitaker, he said, voice clipped, composed. James, came the reply, low and cold. It was Frederick Arlo, chairman of the board of Stellary Resorts International. The man whose name appeared once a year on executive memos and caused minor heart attacks when it did. Yes, sir. A pause. Then, without ceremony, Mr. Morgan left the property today. Were you informed? Whitaker blinked. I know, sir. I wasn't aware he was on site. You weren't aware, Arlo repeated, like tasting something spoiled. He wasn't on our internal VIP list. No pre-flag. No white glove note. No. Correct that mistake. Now. Whitaker's hand hovered over the keyboard like it might catch fire. Arlo continued. Full compliance. Full discretion. I'll expect status by close of business. Understood. Yes, sir. Click. That was it. No explanation. No context. No names. Because when you're at that level, you don't give names. You assume competence. And right now, Whitaker was failing spectacularly at it. He didn't sit back down. He didn't breathe deeply or center himself with a calming thought. He ran. Not jogged. Ran. He shot through the mahogany hallway, knocking a clipboard out of a junior manager's hand without apology, bypassed the kitchen corridor, and slammed into the service office where the resort's digital registry was kept. He didn't even take a seat. He bent at the waist, hands flying across the touchscreen, pulling up that day's check-ins, filtering for group bookings. He ignored the glitchy scroll bar, the lagging interface that I had warned them about during last year's audit. It took him 17 seconds to find it. Name on the booking, Cynthia Renford. Number of guests, 7. Duration, Friday through Monday. Suite cluster, Coral Ridge Villas, ocean facing. He scanned the notes. Nothing flagged. No alerts. No client connected to legacy donor. No Morgan adjacent. No security tags. No background cross-references. Just a note in the optional field. Anniversary weekend, per guest. Husband to join later. Whitaker swore under his breath. That was the internal mistake. Cynthia had booked it under her name. I hadn't appeared anywhere on paper. Because I didn't need to. The name was already on the wall. The GM pulled up the internal list of family tier patrons, a file only 5 people in the entire company had clearance to open. Names tied to investments that could tank the stock if ever made public. Quiet money. Power in its rawest, cleanest form. Line 14. J. A. Morgan, West Coast Holdings Trust, Legacy Tier Alpha, no photo on file. He checked the most recent activity log. Last card access, morning of the check-in. Last location pinged, main gate exit, 11:42 a.m. No formal checkout. No note. Just vanished. And that's when his stomach truly turned. Because when a man with a plaque on the building leaves without saying a word, it doesn't mean nothing's wrong. It means something already is. And now he had to clean it up. He printed the guest registry page, clipped it to a black folder, not the standard leather-bound kind, and walked back to the concierge desk. Who's currently at Coral Ridge? The young woman blinked. The tennis club ladies? Whitaker's face stayed frozen, but inside, his mind was clawing at the walls. The ones who mocked his name. The ones sipping my champagne, eating from menus I personally curated, sitting in robes stitched by my grandmother's foundation. He took the printout and headed toward the cabana area. Something was about to shift. Something was already breaking. The first thing to go was the strawberries. Simple, but noticeable. Melanie had made a scene about the resort's signature morning berries the day before. She bragged about them like they were harvested from Zeus's own garden. They infused them with mint oil, and they used this Himalayan snow sugar. Trust me, your tongue will thank you. But this morning? Nothing. Just a dry, beige croissant and a carafe of lukewarm coffee that looked like it had been sitting since Nixon was president. No folded napkin, no fresh-cut fruit, and most importantly, no berries. Melanie rang room service, of course. Got a friendly but firm, "We'll look into it, ma'am." Claudia joked it was probably a fluke. They're probably just understaffed. Or someone's hungover. Except it kept happening. One cabana drink order turned into a 20-minute wait. Then 40. The waiter came back, sheepish, and said the complimentary service had been paused due to inventory reconciliation. A phrase that sounded made up and corporate enough to confuse them. When Cynthia called down to complain, she used the tone she perfected over years of customer service manipulation, polite, condescending, entitled. The voice that once got a waiter fired for overcooking her sea base. But this time, "I'll pass along the message, ma'am," the receptionist said flatly. No apology. No urgency. No attempt to fake concern. Just a deadline followed by a click. Now, they weren't stupid. Even Melanie paused, her lips twitching as she processed the new landscape. By lunch, their spa appointments had disappeared from the app. Claudia's hot stone massage was gone. Melanie's facial? Replaced with a note. No longer available for your booking class. Booking class. They marched to the front desk. Not Cynthia. She stayed behind, suddenly less eager to be seen. Instead, Greg and Ellen went. 2 minutes later, they came back blinking, confused. "They said they're doing a tier audit," Greg muttered. "What the hell is that?" No one answered. Cynthia's stomach sank, but she masked it with a sharp sip of her mimosa. "Let's not overreact. This place probably just had a systems issue. It'll clear up." But then it didn't. That evening, the group headed to the veranda bar. Sunset drinks, high-end spirits, the whole picture-perfect evening they were promised. Until Ellen's card got declined. She laughed at first. "That's funny. I just used it at the boutique." She handed over another card. "Declined. Ma'am," the bartender said carefully, "it's not your card. It's the internal lock on your tab." Melanie leaned over. "Excuse me? What internal lock? Do you even know who we are?" The bartender just shrugged. "I'm following instruction." That was when Cynthia stood, slowly, walked toward the bar like she could bend reality with her posture. She placed her hands on the counter. "This reservation is under my name. We are full-tier guests. There must be a mistake." The bartender nodded sympathetically, reached under the counter, and pulled out a small laminated card. He slid it across to her. It wasn't for her. It was about her. "Booking class B revoked. Temporary restriction. All privileges pending guest tier review." "Who authorized this?" Cynthia asked. "I'm not permitted to say," he replied. Then he turned to another staff member and muttered something under his breath. Cynthia caught just enough of it to freeze in place. Legacy name was offended. The room tilted slightly. Legacy name. Suddenly, the brass plaque outside didn't feel so decorative anymore. Melanie whispered, "What the hell is going on?" No one had an answer. But somewhere in the corner of her mind, Cynthia remembered Claudia's voice from earlier. "Your husband's name is Jonathan, right?" And then she remembered not correcting her friend when she called him non-elite. Suddenly, the dots weren't just dots. They were lines. And someone was drawing them. Quietly. Precisely. Without ever raising their voice. The office off the lobby wasn't labeled. No manager's suite sign, no corporate insignia, just a frosted glass door with a security badge scanner. Guests walked by it 100 times a day without even noticing it. That's how the best control works. Just out of sight, just above suspicion. Inside, the lights were dimmed low. The general manager, James Whitaker, sat straight-backed, jacket off, collar open, but still sweating. His hand hovered above the desk like he was afraid to disturb the air. Across from him, on a sleek black monitor, the face of an older man filled the screen. Silver hair, dark blazer, thin-rimmed glasses, the kind of expressionless calm you only develop from decades of absolute control. The man didn't blink much. He didn't need to. "I assume you verified the exit?" the man asked. Whitaker nodded quickly. "Yes, sir. Gate timestamp logged at 11:42. He didn't use staff transport. Just walked. And no one on property flagged it?" "No, sir. He wasn't on the active guest list." The man's jaw tightened half a centimeter. "Your front desk still operating off the 2020 database?" Whitaker swallowed. We haven't migrated to the new tier mapping yet. The platform still recognizes donor-level accounts, not legacy tier families." "I see." The words were polite. The tone was not. Then came the instruction. "Calm. Surgical. I want no disruptions. But they don't stay another night." Whitaker stiffened. "Understood. Escorts only. No spectacle. No press contact. Quiet resolution." The GM nodded again, quickly, almost too eagerly. "Yes, sir. The file is being assembled. I'll oversee delivery personally." The man didn't nod, didn't thank him. He just looked off-screen briefly, then back again. "There is a standing trust requirement for this resort, Mr. Whitaker. That requirement is not guest satisfaction. It's the preservation of legacy." "Of course, sir. I don't care what those women drink. I don't care how much they paid. What I care about is that one of our longest-standing benefactors walked off-site, alone, after being publicly humiliated on resort grounds." Whitaker's eyes dropped to his own desk. The man leaned slightly forward. "Do you know what that implies?" Whitaker opened his mouth, closed it. "It implies," the man continued, "that we failed to protect the integrity of a donor who doesn't just fund this place. He shields it. From audit, from inquiry, from acquisition. That kind of shield does not get mocked by drunk tennis wives." A pause. Then, "Send the file to my assistant within the hour. And Whitaker, discretion is not optional." "Yes, sir." The screen went black. Whitaker sat for a second in the silence, just breathing. Then he turned toward the side of the desk, where a manila folder lay open. No logo. No classification markings. Inside, a headshot of Cynthia Renford. A full guest list of the 6 others in her group. Cross-referenced social profiles. Tagged incidents from public events. 3 noise complaints. 1 ejection from a Napa winery. An incident flagged Vegas. Pool altercation. Alleged racial slur, settled privately. A printed screenshot of Cynthia's Instagram post from the night before, captioned, "When you finally level up your circle face blowing a kiss nail polish." And at the very bottom, on its own page, internal, classified, violation of legacy policy, tier alpha breach. Subject, use of resort property to undermine, mock, or disparage legacy benefactor. Status, escalated. Resolution pending. Mandate, full privileges revoked. Guest presence to be terminated discreetly within 24 hours. Whitaker ran a hand down his face. He already knew what came next. Security briefings. Staff realignment. Discreet transportation orders. No public removal, no visible incident, no staff to speak of it after. He stood, took the folder, and buzzed his assistant. "Get the Coral Ridge files. All of them. We're doing a quiet exit protocol. Group of 7. Renford's booking." "Yes, sir." He hung up, heart hammering harder than he cared to admit. Because this wasn't about hotel policy. This was about bloodlines. And somewhere, behind all the money and silence, someone very powerful had just drawn a line through Cynthia's name. The ocean breeze had shifted. What was once warm and indulgent had turned sharp, colder. It didn't register at first. Not with Cynthia, not with the others lounging under white umbrellas embroidered with gold thread. But Ellen felt it. She always did. The slight dip in temperature that doesn't touch your skin, it wraps around your gut. Melanie was mid-rant, furious that her rosewater body scrub had been downgraded to a salt rub, like I'm a piece of steak. Claudia was fidgeting with her app, trying to rebook a facial that now showed unavailable, tier access denied. Cynthia, legs crossed, sun hat tilted just so, tried to keep the group from spiraling. "They're just having some glitch," she said, waving a manicured hand. "We're still here, aren't we? Still enjoying ourselves." But Ellen wasn't listening. She was staring at the plaque. The brass shimmered from where the cabana path curved back toward the lobby. A simple thing, understated. Unimportant, until now. That name, Ellen said quietly, almost to herself. Cynthia glanced at her, irritated. What? Ellen didn't look away from the plaque. J. A. Morgan. I knew a Jonathan Morgan back in college. Northwestern. Early 2000s. He was quiet. Always had old paperbacks in his bag. Never talked much, but when he did, smart. Really smart. Humble. Lived off campus even though he didn't have to. I always thought it was to keep a low profile. Melanie scoffed. Must be a different guy. Yours read books. Cynthia's played spreadsheets. The others chuckled nervously. Cynthia forced a laugh. No, that's not him. Mine was average. Safe. A background character. He wore khakis. Ate turkey sandwiches. Loved Excel. But Ellen's eyes narrowed. Was he ever adopted? The air shifted again. Cynthia blinked. Yes. So, Ellen didn't answer right away. She sat back, slowly, as if gravity had changed. Holy hell, she whispered. That is him. Jonathan Andrew Morgan. Adopted by the Morgans when he was 8. I met one of his cousins once at a benefit. You don't understand. The Morgan Trust isn't just old money. It's ancient. They've been in shipping, land, infrastructure. Quiet holdings, but massive. Like Rockefeller level. But with lawyers so good they don't even get mentioned in Forbes. Claudia's phone slipped from her hand onto the lounge cushion. No, Cynthia said, shaking her head. No. He told me he worked in logistics. He manages things. He drives a Lexus. He buys clothes on sale and won't let me install heated floors. That can't be that Jonathan. Ellen stared at her like she'd just admitted to drowning a kitten. He wasn't supposed to be flashy, she said. That was the whole point of his upbringing. They raised him to avoid attention. Not because he lacked power, because they didn't want it seen. Silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. And then Melanie spoke, her voice small for the first time in 3 days. Seeing, you said he left without saying a word. Cynthia didn't respond. Melanie leaned in. You mocked him in front of the staff. In front of us. You laughed when I said he wasn't elite. Claudia looked pale now. And he just walked away? Ellen's voice cut through like a wire. He didn't walk away. Everyone turned to her. She nodded toward the lobby. He chose to leave. That's different. That means he was watching. Calculating. You're being dramatic, Cynthia said, but her voice was faltering. Ellen leaned forward. If that's him, Swin. If that name on the wall is his, we're not just dealing with a disgruntled husband. We're standing in a house he built. And we've been treating him like the janitor. Melanie stood abruptly, brushing sand from her legs. I need to speak to someone, she muttered. There's got to be a mistake. This is all wrong. No one moved. Cynthia stared at her drink, watching the ice melt, her reflection warping. And for the first time since this all began, she wasn't controlling the conversation. She was the subject of it. And the man they dismissed? He wasn't just gone. He was listening. The morning came wrapped in sun and silence, but not the kind anyone wanted. Melanie was the first to notice something was off. She always woke up early, not because she was productive, but because she liked to be first in line for things, attention, services, champagne. She rang for breakfast. No one answered. She tried the app. All menus disabled. She walked barefoot down to the breakfast veranda in her silk robe and Dior sunglasses, and saw nothing but cleared tables and a single unsmiling staff member rolling away the juice cart. No breakfast? She asked, already annoyed. The man didn't look up. Your group's meal privileges are currently on hold, ma'am. She tilted her head. Excuse me. You'll need to confirm your credential status with the front desk. She walked faster than usual on the way back to her suite. When Claudia tried the spa door, her keycard didn't work. Neither did Greg's at the pool entrance. Ellen's room thermostat was locked at 66 degrees with no override, and her TV showed nothing but the resort's welcome channel, on loop. The messages came slowly at first, then all at once. Your current access level has been paused. Please verify your booking credentials at reception. Privileges under review. Even Cynthia's keycard, once solid platinum with a custom nameplate, she had it made herself, blinked red when she tried to enter the gym. They gathered in the cabana like confused tourists who had just missed their connecting flight. Bags under their eyes, yesterday's foundation still clinging to skin, unbrushed hair tucked under designer sun hats. Melanie was livid. I'm not doing this, she snapped. This is our weekend. We paid for this. I paid for my own damn upgrades. Claudia mumbled. Actually, Cynthia booked the... I know who booked it. Melanie barked. Then she stormed toward the lobby like a one-woman lawsuit, silk robe billowing behind her like a declaration of war. They followed, unease spreading like humidity. At the front desk, A young woman smiled, too brightly. "Welcome, ma'am. How may I help?" Melanie threw her keycard on the counter. "You can start by explaining why we're being treated like shoplifters." The woman didn't flinch. "Your reservation is currently under administrative review." "What does that mean?" "It means we need to reconfirm your group's eligibility for extended stay." "Are you kidding me?" "No, ma'am." Melanie leaned in, lowering her voice. "Do you even know who I am?" The woman gave a short nod and said nothing. Behind them, two men in black polo shirts stepped into the lobby. Not aggressive, not loud, but positioned. Security. Resort branded. Hands behind backs. Earpieces in place. That's when Greg's mouth went dry. "That's not normal," he muttered. Ellen turned to Cynthia, voice low and sharp. "What did you do?" "I don't." Cynthia shook her head. "I didn't do anything. I booked the rooms." "That's it." A beat. Then someone behind the desk picked up the phone. Whispered something. Nodded once. Moments later, the general manager appeared. No clipboard this time. No walkie. Just a sleek black folder in his hand, identical to the one Ellen's ex used to carry during board meetings. James Whitaker. He walked past the check-in line, past the concierge station, past the guests sipping espresso and not noticing that an entire party was being quietly neutralized. He didn't speak. He simply turned left at the end of the lobby, headed toward the cabana lawn, and 7 frozen guests, like a man walking to a waiting signature. Cynthia saw him and felt her knees betray her slightly. Just a tremble. Just enough to know. Melanie turned. "Who the hell is that?" Claudia didn't answer. No one did. Because now, even the staff had stopped pretending. The resort had turned on them. No noise. No headlines. Just a slow, silent unraveling. And a man with a file. They were waiting at the cabana like defendants at sentencing, lounging, but not relaxed. Stiff postures hidden behind sunglasses and forced yawns. Melanie was chewing the edge of her straw like it owed her something. Greg had stopped pretending to scroll his phone. Claudia was reapplying lipstick she hadn't smudged. Cynthia sat upright, legs crossed tightly, as if posture could protect her from whatever was coming. She tried to pretend she didn't see the manager walking toward them, the black folder clutched in his hand like it contained a will. James Whitaker didn't make eye contact. He stopped in the middle of the shaded space, just close enough for them to feel the authority, just far enough not to be accused of intimidation. He opened the folder. Slowly, deliberately. "Mrs. Renford," he said, voice clear but quiet, "and esteemed guests. Per directive issued this morning by the Executive Office of Stellary Resorts International, we are required to inform you that your group has been found in violation of Internal Policy 4.2b. Melanie groaned. "Oh, for what is that?" "Some spa nonsense." He didn't look at her. He was looking directly at Cynthia now. Policy 4.2b. The use of resort property, verbally, physically, or digitally, to undermine, disparage, or publicly humiliate any benefactor of legacy status or above, whether knowingly or through gross negligence. They blinked at him. Claudia gave a soft, scoffing laugh. "Okay, that's a reach." Whitaker didn't react. He turned the folder around and showed the first page, a time-stamped security still. The lobby. The group. Cynthia in mid-laugh. Melanie mid-sentence, her mouth frozen around the word elites. Jonathan's back, mid-step, captured as he turned to leave. Behind him, clear, center frame, the brass plaque. Dedicated to J. A. Morgan for his unmatched generosity and legacy of quiet excellence. No one said a word. Whitaker turned the page. Same lobby. Tighter crop. Audio transcript overlaid beneath. Melanie. "We reserved rooms only for the elites." Cynthia laughs. Jonathan Morgan. No verbal response. Exits frame. Staff reaction. Visible discomfort. Melanie leaned forward. "You're kidding. You're actually using that as evidence." Whitaker closed the folder gently. "No, ma'am. We're using everything. The surveillance, the audio, the social media posts, the service records, and the internal flag triggered when Mr. Morgan's departure was logged without a checkout. A departure without acknowledgement, by a man whose family trust not only funds but governs operational discretion at this facility. He let that hang in the air. Not a threat. A fact. Greg opened his mouth, then closed it. Claudia looked visibly nauseous. Ellen had stopped blinking. Cynthia swallowed hard. "What happens now?" she asked, voice suddenly so small it barely traveled. Whitaker didn't gloat. That wasn't his job. He simply flipped one more page. A typed document titled Resolution Protocol, Tier Alpha Breach. It wasn't long. 3 paragraphs. 1 signature line. Already signed. Then he spoke, carefully. "You will be escorted to retrieve your belongings. You will not be charged for the remainder of your stay. Your membership privileges, if any, are hereby suspended pending internal review. Your names will be removed from all preferred guest registries across Stellary Holdings globally. This will be done discreetly. There will be no scene. Melanie made a choking sound. You can't do this. But the words didn't carry any weight now. They were just sounds. Cynthia's voice was barely above a whisper. He planned this. Whitaker didn't answer. Because of course I planned it. He didn't have to say it. He just turned, the folder tucked under his arm again, and began walking back toward the main path. Behind him, the seven sat frozen. Everything had changed. And yet, the only thing they'd truly lost was access. Ma'am, Whitaker said again, gently this time, like he was offering condolences. You and your party need to come with me. Cynthia didn't move. Not at first. Her fingers gripped the edge of the lounge chair like she might dig her way out of this. Like maybe, just maybe, if she stayed still enough, quiet enough, reality would shift back. The luxury would resume. The staff would remember who she was. But they already had. That was the problem. Melanie muttered something about calling her lawyer, but even she wasn't moving. The fire was gone. Claudia picked up her tote bag wordlessly, sunglasses still on even though the sun had slipped behind a cloud. Greg looked like he wanted to melt into the tiles. Whitaker didn't rush them. He just waited. That was the final insult. Really, the patience. He didn't need to raise his voice. He didn't need to humiliate them. The humiliation had already happened. They had performed it, live, for a silent audience of cameras, registers, and algorithms. Cynthia finally stood. Her sandals scraped the ground. She tried to say something, anything, but the words died behind clenched teeth. No, I didn't know. No, it was a joke. No, please. Nothing. They followed him out in a staggered line, not through the grand arches or the flowered courtyard. No, they were led through a side exit most guests never saw, staff corridors tiled in beige, lined with mop sinks and emergency evacuation maps. The walls smelled like citrus cleaner and last week's seafood. One of the kitchen staff stepped aside without a word as they passed. Another, someone who had poured Melanie's drink just 24 hours ago, watched them like they were ghosts. Outside, in the delivery bay, 7 pieces of monogrammed luggage sat neatly in a row. Their suitcases had been packed for them. Without permission. Without fuss. Just done. Whitaker nodded once to the waiting driver. The man stepped forward, mid-40s, clean suit, shaved head, the look of someone hired to be professional enough for the wealthy, but forgettable enough for a courtroom. He didn't greet them. He just extended his arm and handed Cynthia a single folded note. Her hands shook as she opened it. It wasn't typed. It wasn't angry. Just a clean, even script in dark blue ink. For every silent insult, there's a silent response. JM. She stared at it for a long time, as if the letters might change if she blinked enough. As if that signature might belong to someone else. Some other Jonathan. But it didn't. It was him. She didn't cry. There were no tears. Only a thin, crackling dread unraveling in her chest like thread from a cheap sweater. She had thought she was winning. She thought she had leveled up. She thought he was the dead weight she had carried through the less glamorous years. She never even realized she'd been sitting in his house the entire time. They climbed into the car, one by one, like passengers exiled from a kingdom they thought they owned. No one spoke. Not a single door slammed. The black car pulled out from the back gate and turned down the coastal road. Behind them, the resort remained still, untouched, unmoved. But Cynthia looked back once. Not at the building. Not at the view. At the brass plaque. It gleamed like it was laughing. She finally understood. This wasn't spontaneous. This wasn't emotional. This wasn't revenge. It was architecture. It started subtly. An unanswered text here. A rescheduled lunch there. Invitations that never arrived. Melanie was the first to notice it. The little frost creeping into her inbox. The private tasting event she swore she was confirmed for? Overcapacity. Her usual seat at the monthly benefit committee? Suddenly reorganized. Her name was left off the list, but no one could explain why. Then it got louder. The Four Seasons called Ellen, apologetic but firm. Her loyalty status was under internal review due to a recent behavioral incident flagged through a partner database. When she asked what database, the line went cold. No one knew, or they weren't allowed to say. Greg's account with the exclusive golf club was temporarily paused, while they verified continued compatibility with our code of conduct standards. Whatever that meant. Cynthia tried to stay calm. She told herself it would blow over. But then the donor plaque at the downtown gallery changed. Her name, hers, which had been etched right below Renford Interiors, Legacy Circle contributor, was gone. Replaced. No fanfare. No explanation. Just erased. She drove there, demanding to speak with someone. The receptionist apologized and said, "We've received a lot of pressure from sponsors this quarter. I hope you understand." She didn't. She really didn't. The country club didn't respond to her emails. Her yoga studio restructured its honorary memberships and issued new fobs. When she tried to scan hers, the door buzzed red. The front desk girl smiled awkwardly and offered her a new membership rate. "If you'd like to reapply." Cynthia called 10 people that week. 3 answered. All 3 were very busy right now. By week 3, she stopped calling. Instead, she just checked her email obsessively, waiting for someone, anyone, to tell her this was a mistake. That someone higher up would clarify things. That her name still carried weight. Then it came. A simple subject line. Morgan Trust, final correspondence. She clicked it fast. Hands sweaty. Inside was only one sentence. All affiliations tied to your actions have been dissolved. That was it. No, dear Mrs. Renford. No signature. No offer to appeal. She read it 5 times. It didn't get softer. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her screen, surrounded by silent appliances and a marble countertop that suddenly felt like a museum exhibit. Her phone didn't ring. Her inbox didn't ping. Her life, the curated, filtered, salon-smooth version of it, had stopped moving. And the worst part? She had no idea how much of it had only ever existed because of him. The event invites, the second-hand prestige, the assumed power, none of it had been earned. It had been granted, by proximity, and now revoked. She shut the laptop. The house creaked. A distant car alarm chirped and then went silent again. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark screen, flawless, hollow, and alone. Somewhere far away, Jonathan Morgan likely sat in the same khakis she used to mock, drinking coffee without cream, reading a book that never made the bestseller list. He wasn't angry. He wasn't bitter. He wasn't loud. Because he didn't need to be. He never raised his voice. He just raised the floor and let her fall through.